All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Sunny days in Flushing. No Zach, no Chris today. Just me. Sorry about that. Just me. Um, got a little bit for you tonight before the series beginning in Cleveland. Um, that's got an early start today. That's a 6:10 start, I believe. 6:10 in Cleveland. For those of you that don't know what Cleveland's been up to, they're currently 30-17. They have the best record in the AL Central. I want to say they've got maybe the second or third best record in baseball. I know they're 2 games behind the Yankees. But currently, let's focus on kind of since we last saw each other a week or two ago. Really the last few series, and it's been a rough month of May for the Mets. They have not won a series since they were in St. Louis when they took two out of a only possible two because the third game got rained out, and that was May 6th, 7th, and the eighth game, the game on the day of the 8th was rained out. Like I said, since then, the Mets have won 1, 2, 3 games. They are 3 of 7 in their 10. They're a disaster. They're a disaster on all fronts, and we're gonna kind of get into some of why, or for me, the big things that stuck out. Some of the things I agree with, some of the things I don't, and we'll kind of go from there. The first thing is, I think, the biggest worry, the biggest concern of so far into the 2024 season, and that's Edwin Diaz showing signs of being human again. And that's not a good thing. That's a scary thing. This is a guy that had slowly come up from the disaster of 2019 when the Mets had traded for him to becoming somewhat serviceable in 2021. He shows that he could pitch at home, can't quite pitch on the road as well. 22, he explodes. 32 saves, under like a 1 point, a 0.13 ERA, kept the whip under a 1. I mean, unbelievable all-star season. And prompts the 5-year extension that the Mets signed him to, which absolutely makes sense at that time. I think today it still makes 100% of sense. He's struggling. And to me, and by no means am I a pitching savant, but to me, it's a mental struggle. That's what it looks like. He's missing. I mean, his stuff still looks good. He's still throwing hard. He's throwing fast. He's not throwing with confidence, and you could see it in his face. You could see it in his face after guys hit the ball. You could see it, just the way guys are coming up to the plate with a confidence of their own, to play against Diaz. There used to be a fear when those trumpets came over the loudspeaker, or even in an away game, when 39 came out of the bullpen, you kind of knew it was game over. 2022, I don't care who you were, if you were the Atlanta Braves, the Philadelphia Phillies, the New York Yankees, didn't matter. When that man came out, the game might not have been over, but that inning was over before it started. I think he had maybe 2 blown saves that year, 3 blown saves, whatever it was. And this year, I mean, he had 2 in the past couple of days. It's just concerning. It's concerning, and you hope Edwin can get back to what he was, and I think he will. I think what we're seeing is a small. I don't want to downplay it. Like, it's a concern, but it doesn't look like the end of the world to me. I think the Mets are doing, Mendoza, Stearns, they're doing the right thing by removing Edwin from the closing role. That makes all the sense in the world. It's not a permanent thing, as they've said, and I do believe that. And you're also, you're not paying $25 million a year for a guy that's just going to be a reliever. So it 100% makes sense. If he can't help himself right now, he cannot help this team. And you need to remove him from the situation in which he is struggling. And that's closing out games. So that's number one. And it is good that the Mets have a guy like Reed Garrett that can be more than serviceable in the closing role. So you feel like you're in good hands there. So as I said, they're making the right decision. You just hope that he could get his outings here, in the next week, whether it be in the sixth inning, in the seventh inning, maybe a little more low pressure, where he could find his footing again, find his rhythm, find his confidence, and slowly, I don't know if they're going to have him be the setup man to then, like, what I mean is, because I'm confusing myself now, if they have him start kind of in that sixth, seventh, eighth inning, or sixth or seventh, and then he succeeds there, another game or two in the setup role, he succeeds there, and then they put him back in that closer role. I don't know how they're going to do this. But one way or the other, it's the right thing to do, and it's the right thing to do for Edwin. Let him figure himself out again, where he's no longer a detriment to the team, if he kind of blows up and gives up a run. Like, it's not the end of the world, because as a closer, you give up a run, you fucked up that whole game. Like, that's it. Doesn't matter. Whatever happened before that no longer matters. If you gave up a one-run lead, or you, God forbid, give up 2 runs and it's game over, you fuck the team, And at least in the sixth inning, there is none of that pressure. Now, throughout his career, at least in a Mets uniform, he's definitely had better stats when he comes into a save situation, into a pressure-filled situation, than when he comes in with like a 5-run lead. So traditionally, I would say this wouldn't work, but if you're the Mets, you cannot continue to just trot him out there and hope shit sticks at the wall. And I'm glad that this seems to be a regime that is a little quicker to make changes and not keep doing the same thing, because that's the definition of insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over again and hoping for a different outcome. So, no matter what, for the Mets to be a successful team this year, next year, and beyond, Edwin Diaz needs to be maybe not the 2022 version of himself, because that's ridiculous. I mean, that's hard to ask for. But he's got to be a guy that keeps to, a low 2 ERA and saving games obviously more than he's giving them up. So we need to see more from him. And once again, hopefully mentally he could find himself, and they will give him a chance at doing that. So listen, he had the day off yesterday. Maybe they give him the next couple of days off. I don't know. It would be nice if the Mets could jump out to, a 3-1 lead today. And I believe, who is on the mound today? Tylor Megill, right? So Tylor is probably not going to pitch more than 4.5, 5 innings today. If we're lucky, we get 5 innings out of Tylor. So, yeah, maybe that first guy out of the bullpen could be Edwin Diaz. And even if it's just, to get 2 outs, right? Even if Tylor comes in the 5th, starts the 5th, gets a strikeout, and then walks someone and they pull him, Edwin comes in, to get the 2 outs however he can. And that's it. And then you shut him down till tomorrow or the next day, and you just slowly build him up again. The next concern here, and it's been a concern for pretty much the entire season. I mean, there was maybe a week or so where he looked somewhat profitable. I can't think of the word here. I'm fumbling my words, but Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil's a disaster. He's frustrated. He's hitting at a 238 clip. He's not a high OPS guy. He never was. He's at 621 right now, but he's another guy that just looks lost both offensively and defensively. I could no longer say, the Mets can only win if he's producing. That's not necessarily true. There's other guys in the top of the order, and we'll get to them. The Brandon Nimmo, Starling Marte, JD Martinez for sure. But Jeff McNeil, we're coming to, I guess, if you want to say a fork in the road. You don't really know. You kind of don't really know what to do here, because everybody will say, "Oh, trade him." Well, there's no market for him. So if you want to get rid of him right now, you're going to have to cut him. And that kind of doesn't really make sense. I think as we watch Jeff McNeil, we're probably also watching Acuna down in whatever he's in AA, AAA. Um, and I don't know that they're going to want to throw him into the mix anytime soon. But if Jeff continues to be a liability at second base, both once again defensively and offensively, what do you do? You know, this is a guy that won a batting title 2 years ago. You're counting on him to drive in runs. You're counting on him to just get hits, get on base, and he can't do any of that, and it's concerning. He struck out 21 times, and he's been walked at least from bases on balls. Oh no, walked a total of 18 times, both hit by pitch and bases on balls. So he's striking out more than he's getting walked. He's not getting a whole lot of hits. He's got 38 hits on the season. I mean, I don't know what else to do. We're probably coming to the end of our rope here with Jeff McNeil, and it's a sad thing to see. You know, whether you like Jeff or you don't, you know, personally or whatever, like that's on you. But this was a guy that was a really, really, really consistent hitter for most of his time in a Mets uniform, and it's just sad to see. It's sad to see the fall from grace that we have seen from Jeff McNeil, a reliable guy, a guy that's pretty much always in the lineup. You know, he's had his injuries here and there, but playing, you know, 100 or more games, you know, most of his time in the Mets uniform. So it just sucks. It sucks. And it does lead you to say, like, okay, if Acuna's not ready, is it Brett Beatty we're going to see play second base? I know Zach brought this up to me the other day where there may be a scenario where Vientos becomes the everyday third baseman for a bit and Beatty plays second. I mean, that's another thing that I can't really wrap my head around because you had Mark Vientos up all spring, and he clearly doesn't look ready. But the Mets are saying, no, we're committed to these young guys. We want to give them a chance. You know, if something comes up, we'll jump on it. And that's what they did. They jumped on JD Martinez. They were able to bring down the cost of him this year. And I still don't think that was a bad signing, right? Because no matter how good or how bad the Mets are, if the Mets are really good, like you know, JD's a part of it like he is now, then great. He helps you go on a playoff run. If the Mets are bad and JD is still productive, well, that's a trade chip you could use to help build the farm system even more. But that to me was a message. When they signed JD Martinez, that was a message of Mark Vientos, we don't think you're any good. You're clearly not ready for this. You're going to go down in the minors until the trade deadline, and we're going to move you in a package deal with Luis Severino or somebody else to get things kind of ready for 2025. And now here and it was like Beatty was playing every day at third, and it was a commitment to Brett Beatty. That's the way I viewed it. Both these guys played the same position, and you sent Vientos down. You signed JD Martinez. To me, that was a commitment to Brett Beatty. And now here we are seeing Mark Vientos again, splitting time with Brett Beatty. And I know Brett Beatty's looked bad, but if we committed to him, give him the season. Give him most of the season. Let this kid try. Give him a chance to actually be productive for this team. And at least if you've kind of seen Vientos and you've made your decision and you've given Brett Beatty the full season and he did nothing, then okay, now you know we need to do something at third base next year. If that means it's Ronnie Mauricio, if that means it's Acuna, whoever that may be, if that means going out and trying for a guy like Bregman or one of the free agents, then that's what that means. But at least you've got direction. You know what you're doing. I think having Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty split time, is it going to do you any favor? I just think no one's going to get better from this. I don't think it lights a fire under either one of them. I think it's just it just shows not an ineptitude, but I feel like they just don't know what they're doing at third, and that's concerning. Let's commit to someone and go with it and let them play. And that brings me to kind of my next point, and it does kind of bleed into the Cleveland series. Buto's sent down. Hauser stays on this roster. And Hauser's pitching Tuesday. And that's I don't know. I mean, it's hard to really criticize Stearns and Mendoza this early into the season, especially when we had these mixed bag of emotions going into this offseason. And I want to just give Stevie Mack some love here. Just just let the trade deadline happen already. End our misery. Listen, I'm still hopeful. They're 4 games under 500. You know, there is some hope here that they could turn things around and make things a little more interesting. But deadline gets here, and they still look like a disaster. Yeah, you got to have a fire sale again, and you got to let some guys go. And I do think if that's the case, you do need to start rethinking the core of this team. I mean, top to bottom. It's the truth. I mean, the grouping of Nimmo, McNeil, Lindor, Alonso, Diaz, all these guys have been playing together since 21. We viewed these guys as the core of this organization, the core of this team, and it hasn't looked good. It just hasn't. You know, you've had, out of those 4 years, I mean, this year is kind of up for debate, but you've had one good year, really good. You had one good year, and that's it. So, some hard decisions are going to have to be made, but that's in the future. For right now, my concern is Tuesday. So, like, I understand Tyler's look good down in AAA. I guess you want to give him another chance. I get it. Fine. I don't agree with it. In my eyes, keep Butto here and let him figure it out. You brought him up for a reason. Make a commitment to him. But the truth of the matter is once you cut Hauser, there's no sending him down. I mean, you DFA him, he's gone. He's gone. He might get signed somewhere else. I mean, honestly, he might not because he's looked horrific. So, you know, if tomorrow is, you know, the idea of we're gonna, you know, let Hauser play again and see what he could do and blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, but this is kind of it for him in my eyes. I mean, if he comes out and he's another 4-inning, 4 or 5 run outing, like, I don't know what more to say. The guy wasn't great in Milwaukee. You brought him here. He's been awful here. You haven't really let him play out of the bullpen, so you got to get rid of him. And I guess by then maybe you bring up Peterson. Who the fuck knows? But it just sucks. What upset me most about Hauser being here is that it's taking time away from Butto. And I know Butto looked shaky that last outing, but, like, this is another young guy that's played very well in the minor league system, that played very well in September last year, played very well in the beginning of this year. He has a couple bad outings, and we just assume, well, it won't get better up here. He's got to work on it down in Syracuse. I don't know. I just want to see more of a commitment. Like, make a decision this year. Are we trying to play the young kids and see what they have? Or are we trying to compete for a playoff spot? You know, and whatever that is, like, commit to it. Genuinely commit to it, at least to the deadline. Because if you're kind of like lollygagging around, giving these veterans a chance, you don't know what you've got in these young players. And then here we are next offseason debating, you know, if we should give Jose Butto a spot in the rotation or sign player X, or give Christian Scott, you know, a spot in the rotation, or sign player Y. Like, you got to shit or get off the pot with these kids. Either let them play every day and accept the lumps, accept that they're going to screw up, like, or genuinely try to compete and try to get into the playoffs. But it's one or the other. I mean, you really can't do both. You know, the byproduct of the young kids playing well could mean a playoff berth, and that would be great. But ultimately, I mean, if you go back to the original shows of the preseason and earlier into this season, my expectations and my want for this year has remained the same. I want to know what the young kids in this system can do so that going into 25 and 26, the Mets know where to spend their money and how to spend their money and how much to allocate to certain positions, you know, and a lot of things are just not their fault, right? Gilbert gets hurt. You probably aren't going to see him till June, July. Like, that sucks. that sucks because that was a guy we were counting on to excel in AAA and hopefully come up. When either Marte or Bader gets hurt or needs to, as Marte's had to go away for bereavement for a few days, like that would have been a nice time to see Gilbert for a little bit. Or maybe as DJ Stewart continues to struggle, or at some point Tyrone Taylor is going to struggle because he's a replacement level player in the league. You could bring up a guy like Gilbert, but unfortunately, none of that can happen because he's hurt. It's going to take him a while to rehab to come back. And then when he comes back, you can't just rush him onto the main stage. You got to let him, continue to prove himself down in the minors. So that sucks. That sucks, especially in a year that, Yankee fans don't want to hear this, but Juan Soto is going to be a free agent. He is not signing before the end of this season, right? He is going to go out there and see what the open market could be. And it would have been nice seeing what Gilbert could do for, 3/4 of a season to make you feel better about like, hey, you know what? It would be great to get Soto, but let's turn our attention to re-signing Bader and or going after player X and keeping Alonso or whatever. So that just sucks. And you hope that we could get a good look at him at some point this year, but the more time goes on, the more it looks like probably not. He may come up, but Lord only knows how long. Ultimately, just the offense looks slow on this team. The offense looks bad. It looks inconsistent. A guy gets on base and then 3 guys strike out, or, as a pop-up and a double play. And it just sucks. And you want to see more out of this offense. I mean, they're paying these guys good money. The only guy I could say that legitimately is contributing on offense on a day, there's 2 guys that are really contributing on a day-to-day basis, and that's JD Martinez and Brandon Nimmo. Now, Brandon is not a guy with a great average. He's batting .217. He's got a .777 OPS, but he's hitting his home runs here and there. I mean, at times we really need it. He's got his 29 RBIs, and he's been producing. And I think him batting third is the right place in the order. Alonso's proven he shouldn't be there. Lindor hits into way too many double plays. So I'm absolutely fine with Brandon Nimmo batting third, and JD Martinez. JD Martinez has done, and to a degree, Starling Marte for sure. But JD Martinez has started to kind of heat up and become more consistent, and those have been 2 main producers offensively on this team. With Tyrone Taylor having a day here and there and whatnot. So my dog is going nuts upstairs. Just looking at the Ring camera. I guess he's barking out the window. My apologies. Now we go into this Cleveland series. We're going again. It's Tylor Megill and Ben Lively tonight. So I'll admit I've never really watched Ben Lively. I see he's got a 3.06 ERA, 1.27 WHIP, 30 strikeouts to 12 walks, 2-2 record. He's got 32 innings pitched. So seems to me like he's a pretty above average pitcher. And the Mets, but no one impossible. And the Mets should be able to hit this guy, but who knows? Ultimately, what I'm looking for out of Tylor Megill tonight, if he could give us 5 innings of even 2-run ball, which is not great, but if he could do that at a minimum, the Mets have a chance to win this game, no doubt about it. I don't see him getting into the 6th. He's just coming off an injury. Unless he's got some sort of like a quick 1-2-3 inning where he throws under 10 pitches, I don't see him getting into the 6th or, God forbid, the 7th. And I think they're going to be very cautious with him. He's a guy that's pretty much been injury plagued for his whole career, essentially. And he's shown flashes of brilliance. I mean, remember 2022? He looked great up until he got hurt. He was a part of that no-hitter that took 4 pitchers. So, he's a guy that could do it. It's just we have not seen it on a consistent basis, and it sucks because that's another fall from grace. This was a guy that we thought maybe could have been a staple in this rotation for years to come, and it never happened. It never happened. And unfortunately, this is another series. We're playing Cleveland. We're going to see Andres Jimenez, and we're going to hear all about how he's just a flat out more productive guy at the plate than Lindor is for the most part. And that sucks. And do I think he's a better hitter? No, I don't. I don't. But you can't argue with Jimenez's numbers since he's gotten to Cleveland and Lindor's numbers since he's been in a Mets uniform. And Lindor has been productive for the most part, but it's been a lot of inconsistency, and Jimenez has kind of been the opposite. Not a lot of power, but he's been consistent, and he's been a problem at the plate for opposing teams. He's got 27 RBIs, 3 home runs, and he's hitting 277 with a 724 OPS. Compare that to Lindor, 628 OPS, 197 average, 7 home runs to 22 RBIs. I mean, it's night and day. And no, long term, I think I would rather have Lindor. I know I'd rather have Lindor. Lindor gives you a lot more upside, but you can't ignore the numbers, and it sucks. It sucks because you're paying $34.1 million, and you're just not seeing that return. We haven't seen that return. You just hope the guy could turn it around. I don't know a lot else of what to say. You just hope he could turn it around. In the field, he's been stellar. He's always been stellar, but it's the inconsistencies at the plate that piss people off. And, I'm at a point where I just can't blame those people. You want to complain about Lindor? Like, I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think any of those things, but how much more can we defend this? How much more can we just sit there and say that it's okay? Because it's not. It's not. And I'm never one to boo. I don't believe in booing your own players. I don't think that that's productive. I don't think that going on Twitter and bitching about Lindor is productive. But I'm also not going to sit here with my blinders on and say everything's okay, because it's not. It's not. This is a guy we should expect more out of. We should see more out of. And we just don't. We don't. And the same could be said about the same is to be said about Alonso and McNeil. And that's why if we continue to see more of this, you got to shake up this core, I think, at the end of the year. And I hate to say it. I never thought I would. I've heard this for like a year and a half now, that maybe we got to shake up the core. Maybe we got to shake up the core. And I never agreed with it, but now I'm kind of at a point of like, no one's won. No one's shown a whole lot of progress. If that means saying goodbye to a guy like Alonso, I'd hate to do it, but this team's got to start winning. They've done the right things in the farm system. They've done the right things up in the front office and spending money and using that money as leverage to rebuild your farm system. And I get all of that, and I'm in favor of all that. But let's stick to this manager for a little while. And these core guys need to prove themselves, because if they don't, it's time to make moves. And that doesn't mean move on from a guy like Lindor or Nimmo, but maybe it means that some of these guys can't be the focal point of this offense anymore. It's just not fair. It's not fair to the rest of the organization. It's not fair to the guys in the lineup. It's not. It's just not. So let's hope we could see more of a turnaround here. Let's hope that what happened yesterday could snowball. Cleveland's a really good team. To expect to win this series is crazy. Well, maybe not crazy because it's baseball, right? Anything could happen, but you take 2 out of 3 here, great. Win at least one game in this series. Do not get swept again. And, you move on later in the week to the Giants and you see what happens. But for right now, let's see what Tylor could do. I believe we're going to come on tomorrow before the game, me and Zach. So you'll get a pregame from us tomorrow, and we will see you then. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and let's go Mets.